If I may, quickly, Chair. I think we saw on scrutiny things at airport that the freight during COVID went up 50%. It did take stuff coming from London because a lot of the suppliers worked out it's easier to get into Doncaster and get all over because of where it's sited. Absolutely fantastic for freight. It worked. It works lovely. But I think I were alluding to the South Yorkshire. Obviously, UK is great. And I think we do realise how big this is. But when we talk in South Yorkshire that we'll be receiving some of this benefit, we just wonder what would happen and why the Oliver hasn't contributed as much as it potentially could have done, as they are going to benefit from it as well. That is and what happens if it doesn't? Obviously, we'll still go ahead, but they should be contributing.
I think we've got that question coming up actually from Councillor Hempshaw. So, thanks for that, Steve. I'll just move on to, I think your question, Councillor Smith, follows on a little bit from what we were just saying about the proposed benefits of the airport.
Yes, so thank you, Chair. My question is really, what's different from when the airport was operating previously?
Thanks, Councillor. I think that's a really good question, actually. I like that question a lot. You heard Debbie allude to, obviously, in terms of Heathrow, and to give you an idea, the third runway, I think the modelling of that is roughly about an annual freight volume of 1 million tonnes. Now, that's huge. And obviously, in terms of the time that takes to be able to deliver something like a third runway, and we've seen obviously the headlines of 800 houses and obviously closures potentially of the M25, that's huge. And now what we're saying is a regional airport and rebalancing, in terms of some of those opportunities for, obviously, in terms of northern airports, there's surely an argument around being able to significantly increase the freight volumes at DSA. In its prime in 2019, it was around 23,000 tonnes. This is an airport that should be, at that 100,000 tonnes plus. And so I think for us, in regards to our ambition on the freight volumes, is key. We also talk about the fact that for an airport to be successful, it needs airlines. We've seen before previously in terms of some of the difficulties that Wizz Air had, previously operating at the airport, and ultimately it was down to one airline. Working with our advisors from Munich, we're very clear. We want to target a number of airlines, and have already been having those conversations for over 12 months with certain airlines. So I think, in terms of having a strategy where you've got an airport with only one airline doesn't work for us, for Doncaster, and hence why we want at least, a minimum of around about that kind of 4 to 5, and that's the kind of where we're working at. I think the other piece is very much around, in terms of the previous contracts. In regards to the aviation advisors that have been advising us throughout this process and the critique of how things were done in the past, very much a tight fiscal control of regional airports is key. And so I think we want a tighter fiscal control of, obviously, in terms of the finances in regards to the airport. I suppose the other piece is very much around carbon reduction. And so I think there's lots in the press at the moment around climate and net zero airports, but actually we've got an airport that's, probably at this moment in time is not that very much in terms from a greening point of view. Now that offers, in terms of opportunities around energy capture. So I think there's something for me around the airport and how do we, in terms of help to meet that kind of 2050 net zero ambition as well. And I think the other piece, not so much from a financial point of view, but it's that education piece. And very much how do we hard-bake the education piece around all the institutions, so whether it's primary school or secondary school or university technical college or even the universities in our region or outside, how do we hard-bake the kind of education element into the kind of the South Yorkshire Airport City programme? And that's the conversations we've been having privately behind, in terms of closed doors with those education providers. So I think on a number of fronts, hopefully it will feel, in terms of very different. I suppose, and just the last point is, and it alludes to the response that Faye was mentioning around the investment zone and the 9 to 1. So we were very clear in our negotiations with Peel that we wanted the ability to grow the airport, and specifically what we refer to as DSA 04, which is about 126 acres, the ability to develop airside, aviation, like-minded industries, whether or not it's from a manufacturing or it's from additional hangars, will be key. That will bring significant revenue into the airport, but also into Doncaster. So hopefully we've got a model which excites, and obviously, clearly, this is an airport that's the heart of the UK listed. Oh yeah. Sorry. The other just final comment is currently we're working with Turley's. So Turley's in co-production with ourselves and Peel produced a wider master plan for the whole locality. So not only for the airport but also for Gateway East. That was signed off by Peel and Turley's last month. It's on the public domain now. We've asked Turley's to do a more of an in-depth, detailed piece, specifically around the airport and all those opportunities that have presented themselves, as well as the SAL4. So we hope to kind of get that finalised by the end of this month. But hopefully that kind of master plan will show, in terms of the general public and businesses, some of those really exciting opportunities that have presented themselves to us. Thank you.
Can I just sort of summarise a little bit from what you were saying there? Is the difference the will to do this?
I think partly, yeah. We've got a really exciting team here. In terms of looking at, not only in terms of City of Doncaster Council colleagues, now obviously in terms of Fly Doncaster colleagues, but also in regards to our advisors. Munich, as well as our aviation advisors, I've been so impressed with, the Munich leadership team that have come over. They've got a successful airport which is running around 40 million passengers and around 400,000 tonnes of freight. They've got bold ambitions and we want to capture some of that and have it here in Doncaster. So yeah,